For most of our country's history, the Bible was found in every classroom in the nation. Yet in many schools today, students are instead indoctrinated with anti-religious propaganda, and some are even punished for their religious beliefs, and very, very strongly punished. It's ridiculous.
This morning, President Trump made a powerful appearance at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, reaffirming his unwavering commitment to religious freedom in America. His visit comes in the wake of a bombshell report from the Department of Justice, which accuses the Biden administration of weaponizing the federal government against Christians. According to the report, the previous administration deprioritized, mishandled, or outright denied requests for religious exemptions under its COVID-19 mandate. It also highlights attempts by the Biden White House to impose unprecedented fines on some of the nation's largest Christian universities, while failing to investigate or prosecute violations where anti-Christian bias was evident. President Trump's appearance underscores his dedication to defending faith-based rights and ensuring that Christian Americans are protected from governmental overreach and discrimination. And Pam Bondi said, things have drastically changed under Trump's leadership.
Under his leadership, we have dropped FACE cases against pro-life Christians, stopped the FBI from spying on Catholics, launched multiple investigations into anti-Semitism in schools. President Trump is fighting each day for our parents, our students, and every American's right to live out their faith.
And don't forget, Trump stood firm for First Amendment back in 2020, even when it was tough.
Some governors have deemed liquor stores and abortion clinics as essential, but have left out churches. I call upon governors to allow our churches and places of worship to open right now.
On Fox News, a guest blasts the Biden administration for targeting Catholics. While liquor stores stayed open, churches were shut, and federal agencies went after traditional Catholics. This is an unprecedented attack on faith and freedom.
I understand why they wanted to keep the liquor stores open, but they really targeted churches. And, you know, it was no surprise when we heard during the Biden administration that one of the FBI field offices had sent out a memo targeting Catholics, the radical traditionalist Catholics who are somehow now a terrorist organization. And Christopher Wray went before Congress and was like, what? I've never heard of such a thing. I'm disgusted. And then, you know, they did a deeper dive, and there was a congressional investigation this year, and they found that yes, in fact, that investigation was wider spread. It involved more field offices, and it absolutely, you know, this government agency, this federal law enforcement, was targeting Catholics. And that's the issue a lot of people had. It started in COVID, it took root, and unfortunately blossomed during the Biden administration.
In May 2020, the United States was in the grip of the COVID-19 pandemic, and state governments across the country were issuing restrictions to curb the virus. Among these were sweeping bans on large gatherings, including religious services. While essential businesses like liquor stores and big box retailers were allowed to remain open, many churches, particularly Christian and Catholic congregations, were forced to shutter their doors. These actions disproportionately impacted religious Americans and sparked nationwide debates about constitutional rights and religious freedom. At the time, Donald J. Trump was the sitting president, and he immediately recognized the imbalance. Trump consistently called out Democratic governors for unfairly targeting churches while keeping liquor stores and other non-essential businesses operational. His position was clear: religious liberty must be protected, and Americans have the right to practice their faith without government interference. Trump's interventions were not mere words. Through public statements and executive encouragement, he pressured governors to lift restrictions on churches. His administration argued that shutting down religious institutions while keeping other businesses open was constitutionally questionable and violated the First Amendment. This was a defining moment in Trump's presidency, demonstrating his commitment to defend faith-based communities against overreach from Democratic state governments. Governors like Andrew Cuomo in New York, Gavin Newsom in California, and Tim Walz in Minnesota, all Democrats, were among those who imposed stringent restrictions. Trump's call for fairness was consistent. If liquor stores could operate, churches should too. Fast forward to 2021. After Joe Biden assumed the presidency on January 20, the concerns about religious liberty did not dissipate. Reports began to surface regarding federal agencies, including the FBI, issuing memos and conducting investigations that appeared to target conservative and traditionalist Catholic groups. In one notable incident, an FBI field office sent a memo identifying radical traditionalist Catholics as potential threats, effectively categorizing religious individuals as a domestic security concern. Christopher Wray, the FBI director, publicly expressed shock at the characterization, stating he had never heard of such an initiative. A subsequent congressional investigation confirmed that the targeting was more widespread than initially reported, involving multiple field offices and signaling a disturbing federal trend. Religious Americans, particularly Catholics, were being monitored and stigmatized for their beliefs. Fox News guest commentators have consistently highlighted these developments, exposing the Biden administration's pattern of undermining religious freedom. They argue that this is not isolated, but part of a broader attempt by federal authorities to impose ideological conformity and to subtly intimidate faith-based Americans. Such actions, critics contend, are symptomatic of a democratic agenda that prioritizes secular control over personal liberties, particularly the freedom to worship. By contrast, President Trump's actions, including his 2020 interventions, clearly demonstrate a starkly different approach: protect religious practice and prevent government overreach. President Trump continued this theme of defending religious liberty during his post-presidential activities. In his visit to the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., he emphasized that under his guidance, there would be no spying on churches, and Americans could openly practice their faith without fear of federal intrusion. Trump reaffirmed that anyone attempting to use government power to persecute religious individuals would face consequences. This consistent advocacy underscores a broader philosophical difference. While the Biden administration appears willing to surveil and target religious communities, Trump champions the constitutional rights of all Americans to worship freely. The implications of these policies extend beyond religious liberty into the cultural and political realms. During the pandemic, the disproportionate targeting of churches highlighted a key inconsistency in the application of public health restrictions. Liquor stores, cannabis dispensaries, and other non-essential businesses remained operational, often with minimal oversight, while houses of worship faced strict attendance limits or outright closures. Critics argue that this selective enforcement was less about public health and more about sending a message of ideological compliance. By targeting faith-based institutions, the Biden administration, through its federal agencies, appeared to be discouraging certain religious expressions, particularly those aligned with conservative or traditionalist values. Data from various congressional reports and media investigations confirms this disparity. While numerous secular businesses maintained operations under state and federal guidance, religious institutions experienced repeated interventions, inspections, and monitoring. Such measures were unusual in scope and unprecedented in targeting a specific religious demographic. By framing radical traditionalist Catholics as domestic threats, the federal government effectively politicized faith, turning it into a lens through which individuals could be scrutinized or penalized. This approach has alarmed many Americans who view it as a direct violation of the First Amendment. Trump's actions, both during his presidency and in his post-presidential advocacy, have consistently countered this trend. By highlighting the hypocrisy of keeping liquor stores open while closing churches, Trump underscored the importance of equal treatment under the law for religious organizations. Moreover, his statements at the Museum of the Bible reaffirmed that Americans could expect protection from federal overreach, a promise that directly contrasts with the actions taken during the Biden administration. Trump's approach combines constitutional fidelity with moral clarity, ensuring that religious communities are not penalized for practicing their faith, regardless of political affiliation. It is also important to note the broader cultural implications of this federal targeting. The Biden administration's policies have contributed to a growing perception that religious Americans, particularly Catholics, are viewed with suspicion or treated as politically inconvenient. By framing traditionalist Catholics as potential domestic threats, the administration has blurred the line between lawful religious expression and criminal activity. This has prompted widespread concern among faith communities, who see these measures as attempts to undermine moral and religious values foundational to American society. Experts argue that Trump's interventions in 2020, coupled with his continued advocacy, serve as a critical counterbalance to these trends. By publicly defending churches, pressuring governors to end discriminatory restrictions, and reinforcing protections for religious practice, Trump has positioned himself as a champion of religious liberty in modern America. His actions provide a stark contrast to the Biden administration's apparent willingness to target and monitor faith-based groups, raising important questions about the future of First Amendment protections. The controversy surrounding federal targeting of religious groups also intersects with issues of enforcement and accountability. Reports indicate that multiple field offices of the FBI were involved in monitoring traditionalist Catholic organizations, a move that was later confirmed by congressional investigations. These actions, critics assert, amount to a misuse of federal authority for ideological purposes, undermining public trust in law enforcement institutions. Trump's consistent opposition to these measures reinforces the principle that government power should never be used to intimidate or suppress lawful religious activity. As the nation continues to navigate the post-pandemic landscape, the debate over religious liberty remains highly relevant. Trump's visit to the Museum of the Bible and his statements about protecting faith communities underscore the importance of holding federal agencies accountable. By ensuring that churches and religious organizations are free from government surveillance, Trump signals a broader commitment to upholding constitutional rights and respecting moral diversity.
This stance resonates with millions of Americans who feel that their faith is under scrutiny in the current political climate. Furthermore, Trump's advocacy highlights a critical distinction between partisan politics and principled governance. While the Biden administration's policies appear motivated by ideological considerations, Trump's approach is rooted in constitutional law and fundamental freedoms. This difference has significant implications for American society, as it affects not only the ability of individuals to worship freely, but also the broader relationship between citizens and the federal government. By defending religious liberty, Trump reinforces the notion that government exists to serve the people, not to police their beliefs. The importance of this issue is magnified by the historical context of religious persecution in America. Throughout the nation's history, religious communities have often faced challenges in practicing their faith without interference. Trump's interventions, both as president and in his ongoing public advocacy, represent a modern reaffirmation of these foundational principles. By standing against federal overreach, particularly as demonstrated in the targeting of Catholics, Trump ensures that religious Americans can live according to their beliefs without fear of retaliation. In conclusion, the evidence clearly demonstrates that the Biden administration has, through both state-aligned policies and federal agency actions, created a challenging environment for religious Americans, especially Catholics. From pandemic-era restrictions imposed by Democratic governors to FBI memos framing traditionalist Catholics as domestic threats, the cumulative effect has been to undermine faith-based communities. In contrast, Donald J. Trump has consistently defended religious liberty, from challenging governors' restrictions in 2020 to his public affirmations at the Museum of the Bible. His efforts reinforce the principle that Americans have the right to worship freely and without fear of government intrusion. By exposing these policies, Trump not only protects constitutional rights, but also provides a clear blueprint for ensuring that faith remains a protected and respected aspect of American life. Ultimately, this history and Trump's advocacy serve as a powerful reminder: religious liberty is non-negotiable, government overreach must be resisted, and faith-based Americans must never be treated as targets of ideological agendas. Under Trump's guidance, both past and present, the message is clear: churches are safe, religious freedom is upheld, and those who seek to violate these rights will be held accountable.